Hi everybody, I thought I'd just come on and share a little video about the new zines that I've made. So I've been doing a project recently. I've kind of been getting into doing some research about coffee houses in the 1950s. I read a book that was a history, very in-depth history of all the different things that were going on in the UK in the 50s, mid-50s, early 60s, called Never Had It So Good by Dominic Sambrook. Loads of it was super interesting, but the bits that really, some of the bits that really interested me were the introduction of coffee houses, coffee bars, with Italian coffee makers, with Gaggia coffee makers. And that kind of changed and kind of brought, we've always had sort of coffee houses since Georgian times in England, but it sort of brought in a new wave of coffee bars and the kind of youth culture that grew up around that. So skiffle and rock and roll, they had jukeboxes, they were for young people. I got really interested in it, and I've done some of my own research into a couple of different ones. There's some more to come, but the two zines here are two specific coffee houses, coffee bars that were around in the 50s. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about those, the zines, the project, and I'm going to show you some of my artwork and talk a little bit about that. So yeah, these are specific coffee houses. The research has been done, they're basically based on British Pathé movies, video footage, newsreel footage from inside these coffee places in a specific time. So the news footage would go, the cameras would go and record in that place and produce a segment. You can watch those online. So that's what these are based on. I've watched the videos and then I've done research based on those videos and drawings from the videos. So it captures a very specific moment in time that those cameras went in to this coffee house, which is why I've done it as one single image, because it's sort of all in one evening, one snapshot of time in this place. So these are little zines. They have the one picture, and then they have some information about the venue on the other side. So they're very simple. There's two. There's El Cubano and there's the Macabre. They're both themed coffee bars. So there was, because it was like an explosion of coffee bars in the mid-50s in London, they had to kind of try and stand out from each other and be new and novel to get people to go. And so they ended up having like specific themes or a specific reason that you would frequent each one. So El Cubano is a sort of tropical, exotic themed one. I mean, could be Cuban, but the proprietor was English, and I think kind of just went with a sort of exotic tropical theme, from what I can gather from my research. But there was things like toucans in a cage. There was a monkey running around. They served things out of coconuts, hired Jamaican, Trinidadian, West Indian waiters and baristas, and so yeah, lots of foliage, lots of sort of what passed for the exotic in 1950s London. So that was El Cubano. And then Le Macabre, the theme of this one was actually death. So skeletons, the jukebox played funeral music, and there was severed hand ashtrays, that sort of thing. I don't know how serious it was in its theme, whether it was kind of a whimsical thing or whether, I mean, to be honest, looking at the clientele, whether they're proto-goths or whether they are sort of a whimsical set, I'm not sure. So that's what these are. They're based on videos. And then I've done drawings from the stills of the videos. There's a very specific reason why I wanted to do these, and I wanted to do them like this. Basically, in the past, I've done some previous zines like this one, and they have been made as not as final illustrations, I would say. They're from sketches, so these have been worked up. These illustrations that are in here have been worked up from sketches in my sketchbook, and I haven't produced them as a final piece. If you know my background, you might know I studied illustration about 20 years ago and haven't really done it since. I've been working in textiles. The reason that I didn't end up working in illustration is I found it very difficult to do a final piece. I've always found that really, really tricky to kind of sit down, decide on a final outcome, and sit down and do it. And so this is how I've been doing things in the last couple of years when I've got back into illustration. I've been trying to kind of find ways to get around having to not sit down and do a final thing, using sketches, using other ways of doing it. So this, but I've been getting better, and I felt like actually I was ready to be able to do that. So what I wanted to do with these is I wanted to do one scene. I wanted to do one scene, so I couldn't do it digitally. It had to all be planned out to the right size, and then I wanted to make it in full, basically. So I will show you the process of doing that. I started off with some sketches. So this is my sketchbook. This is what I did these before I knew I was going to do it as a project. This was just watching the videos and doing some sketches from those. The process of drawing is the same as the final pieces. So how I've done these sketches is there is an ink, sort of a peach ink on the background, and then I've added pan pastel to make the textures of all of the clothing and the background. I've got a bit of watercolour for things like the hair, ink for the outline, and pencil for the more the details of the face, sort of the lines on the jacket. So it is a mixed media approach. That's how I like to use, but most of it is pan pastel, ink, and pencil crayon. So I did these from the stills on the video. It is quite difficult. This one in particular was quite tricky because it's a newsreel from the 50s. They're in black and white, so there's no colour. I have to make that up. And then also the quality of the footage is obviously not that great, and is then on a computer screen as well, so you can't really see all of the details. So things like hands and the fabric, not necessarily be exactly viewable on the still. So you kind of have to do a mixture of looking at the video still and then watching the video to sort of get the idea of that person, and sort of work out how they're sitting and things like that. It's really difficult to just do it straight from the still on its own. So yeah, so this one, I did this one, and then I did some others. So I decided I was going to try and make it into a zine, and I worked out that it was going to be something like this. It was going to be a scene. So I started doing a few more experiments on flat sheets of paper, because I always work in my sketchbook and I've never done anything on flat sheets. So I bought some of this Jackson's hot press paper on the recommendation of Emma Carlisle, and was started to use that because it does make you work a little bit differently. Well, just the texture's a little bit different, I think, to the sketchbook, so it was good to do some trials on the paper. So this one is from this. I quite like, so this was directly from the video, and then this one was sort of from this, as well as looking at the video a little bit, but this is sort of like from this one, and I quite like doing it like that in kind of Chinese whispers style. So it does change. You can see there's quite a lot of differences between the two, and it kind of pushes it on a little bit, and means that it's sort of my own design in a way. Like, it's every time it moves on, and every time you do another one, it sort of changes it to be more away from the video. I quite like that about it. So these are a little bit more refined. So I've added in things like the skulls that obviously aren't on this one, done it more, a little bit more full length, so you can see that they're sitting down on this side panel. So then what I did is I had a look through the rest of the video, and I looked at some more of the patrons of the video. It's only a very short video, but there were a few other people in there. So we have these two. Now the slogan of the coffee house is "Your coffee on a coffin." So I wanted to try and get that coffin sort of shape in there. Then we've got the waiter and the coffee machine. So on the video I couldn't really see what the coffee machine looked like, so after this I then had to go away and have a look at actually what did those coffee machines look like. There was all of them kind of looked the same at that time. They had these black levers, and they had this clear sort of top to them, so that was quite interesting to kind of try and find some examples of those I could draw from that weren't from grainy videos. And then I did this one, which are some skiffles, and I think they're quite fun in that they're the thing that sort of makes you kind of look at the skeletons and look at the theme, and then look at them with their like matching maybe handmade jumpers, and think, okay, there's, you know, it's not a scary bar. They're quite tame, aren't they, these two? So I quite like these. I liked how it's come together, and I think that's my favourite out of those four that I tried out. So once I knew I was going to do a little booklet, I knew the size. So this is A6 size. It's actually printed on flat sheets, and I cut it down myself because that's something I do in my main business, and it's something that I'm kind of comfortable with. So I knew exactly what size it was going to be, because that's what fits on the printed sheets. So I was able to scale it up a little bit and draw out the panel that it was going to be in, and then I could fit in, because I'd done these, I could kind of fit them in and decide where they were going to go to make the scene up. This is what it looks like. Now, things like the hair, I've tried to put more detail in than I did on those initial sketches. You can see that I've changed quite a lot of things. I mean, this guy looks nothing like the one I had on here. He's quite different. And again, as I said, I quite like that about it, you know, it's kind of changing each time. I could recreate the same thing and like trace it off, but I don't really see the point of it. I don't mind coming up with something slightly different each time. These guys look fairly similar to these ones. His face is a little bit different, but yeah, they're fairly similar. Now this one isn't 100% what you see in the final piece. This one's quite a bit darker, because they're in the actual cafe, in the coffee bar, there was all these skeletons painted on the walls. What I've done is I've put a digital layer. I scanned this in, and then I've added a layer that's a slight bit darker, and I've rubbed a bit of that layer away to get these skeletons. So the actual final thing does have some digital elements to it, but all of the people, all of the drawing is basically what you see here. So I'm quite pleased with myself that I was able to do that. That was my goal, was to draw everything out as it was going to be. I haven't cut things out and pasted them around. I had to do a little bit of editing to get this line to sit correctly, but there's been no major changes to this digitally, which that was what I was looking for. So that is the Macabre. After that, I thought I really enjoyed doing that one, and I thought I would do Cubano. It's a completely different vibe, this one. It's also filmed in colour, and the colours are really bright, really vibrant, really 50s. So I kind of wanted to get that in and do one that just, the vibe of it is so different. So instead of doing flat panels, to try these out, I just did these little panels in my sketchbook, just to try out the different people on in the video. Some of them I didn't like very much, and I have left out of the final thing, but some of them I did like, but I've kind of moved around. So yeah, so I didn't do very many of these these ones. I actually wish I'd done more, and that's something to learn for next time. I kind of became overconfident and I thought, oh yeah, I just needed to try out a few, and I've got it, and I know what I'm doing. But actually in the final thing I didn't have enough people in a way, and I think I should have done a few more trials, so that's something to learn for next time. But again, I have drawn this out as a whole panel, and this one's had pretty much no editing afterwards, just a little bit of editing to get the line out of the center and tweaking the colors a little bit, but that's essentially what you've got in the final zine. This one I've got a little bit of collage. What happened with this one is that I had got all of these stills. I'd taken stills and taken screenshots from the video. I was working from those, but I forgot to kind of keep looking back at the video. During the first one, whilst I was doing the trials, I kept watching the video, and it kept giving me a sense of like actually what the atmosphere was like. With this one I was working purely from the stills, and what happened then is that because they're focused on two people or one person, the kind of rest of the background of the restaurant was lost. And actually there was, if you take this out, there's kind of no tropicalness in it. There's no plants, there's no anything like that. So initially I had another table here with some people in, but then I watched the video and I just thought, oh my god, mine doesn't look anything like that. There's no foliage, there's no plants, and there was in the video. So I've done some collage to take out that table basically, and put in some foliage, and I quite like that there's just like this flatness there, and it looks a bit disjointed, but I'm quite into that. I feel like it tells you that you're not looking at a full scene and it's sort of bits and pieces, rather than, you know, like these toucans are not the right size, they wouldn't be there, they'd be in a cage somewhere else. So the whole thing is sort of mix and match the idea of different people. So so I really like that addition, and I'm really pleased that I put those in. This one looks a bit different in terms of the colours, but it's essentially the same. I've got this colour underneath, so under the whole amount is this colour here, which is an ink. Then I've layered different things on top. This one's got a bit more neo colour, so this colour here is the neo colour to make it, and this one here. Obviously I've got a lot more brighter colours in this one, so I've used a kind of a bit more of a range of my colour palette, different inks, different, this one's ink as well, but mostly we've got things like the pan pastel doing the texture, anywhere there's texture in clothing, pan pastel, although this one and this one are neo colour, outlines in ink but details in pencil, and a little bit of watercolour as well. So the bars of this cage are watercolours. So yeah, so that's the final piece. So I'm really pleased with this one, with how the final piece has gone, and it makes me, one, proud of myself that I've been able to do it, and two, that I enjoyed doing it actually, and I enjoyed working on something finished and final, which I never thought I'd say, because it's always something that I've really struggled with. So I feel like I'm making some steps forward, and it's quite exciting. I feel like I've got a list now of other things that I want to do. There's one more to go in this series, which is more of a dancing, it's more of a jazz bar, not to do with coffee, but still like 1950s sort of nightlife. So I've already started doing the illustrations for that, and I've done the plans and the illustration. I've just got to put the booklet together, but then I've got to think about some other themes that I can do to use the same skills and keep practicing and pushing forward. So I hope that's been interesting, and if you would like to get your hands on either of these little zines, they are available on my Etsy shop, my Third Hand History Etsy shop, and I'll put the link in the video. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed learning about these two strange 1950s venues.